Wonderful, wonderful. What a beautiful Lord's Day out there. Have y'all noticed that it's like warm and sunny? And like earlier, last something, 28 degrees or some kind of deal? How crazy. Come on up, Alan. Special speaker today. Our people work tirelessly to engage Alan Mathis. He's a member here. He's been a member here since 1977 because he was born in Birmingham while his dad was a minister here at Homewood. Don Mathis. Anybody know Don Mathis? Okay. Do we have a picture? No. Anyway, Don Mathis. Okay. Then they moved to Montgomery, Jacksonville, Florida. Alan played baseball. He would be in the World Series now if it weren't for law. The man was driven by misbehavior. Okay. Okay. He studied at the University of North Florida and law school at Alabama. Now he is a lawyer, practicing lawyer, with Butler Snow. Okay, he is a litigator, but on the defense side, mostly for corporations. Okay, so he's just gotten out of a body cast, and that's why it was a while before he could speak again. Okay, now, somehow he was able to convince the lovely, the talented, the musical, the saintly. Where is Kristen? Kristen Reed Mathis. Okay, sometimes, now she's Mathis. She was just Kristen Reed before. She gave up a musical career to actually marry Alan, and they have produced two lovely daughters. Lily, 8, going on 20, and Ada, 6. Please help me welcome a man who was responsible for the very popular bumper sticker, "Lawyers are really nice guys." Our own Alan Mathis.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, can you hear me okay? Is this close enough to my mouth? Okay, very good. Well, thanks for letting me join you again. I like talking to this class. This doesn't have to be a lecture. If at any point I say something that triggers a comment, a question, a boo, speak out. So I usually, when I'm planning a lesson, especially for this class, when I can come up with whatever, I generally come up with something that I need to hear. So I hope you'll find some application to yourselves, but this is the kind of thing I need to hear. So we normally attend the class, Brett's class, for parents of elementary age children upstairs. And one thing we studied fairly recently was the Enneagram. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Enneagram, but it's a personality guide. Unlike some personality tests that we take where you get to, oh, yeah, I fit into this category, so that means I'm good at X, Y, Z, and this is all positivity. The Enneagram actually focuses on possibly your greatest flaw and the sin that you struggle with, the sin that keeps you from living the fulfilling life that God has planned for you. And it's a little bit off-putting when you're talking about this in a discussion group upstairs because it's basically confession time. When you tell people which personality you fit into, your darkest side is all of a sudden revealed to them. And so now I'm going to do that here in front of you all. I am a 9, which I know means nothing to you if you don't know about the Enneagram, but my deadly sin, according to the Enneagram, is sloth. It is. It is. I won't get into all the details of the book, but when I read parts of it, it was remarkably close to things I struggle with. That doesn't mean I'm always slothful, but it's something I have to be on guard about. And so this is an excerpt from the book about the group I fit into, 9s. Average 9s are disconnected from the passion and motivational drive necessary to rise up and live their one wild and precious life. Immature 9s don't fully connect to the fire in the belly they need to chase after their God-given life, and as a result, fail to become their own person. But tapping into those fiery passions and instinctual drives would upset inner peace and equilibrium the 9 treasures above almost everything else. 9s are slothful when it comes to fully paying attention to their own lives, figuring out what they want in life and chasing their dreams, addressing their own needs, developing their own gifts, and pursuing their calling. They cling to and protect their Hakuna Matata, inner harmony. They ask little of life and hope life returns the favor. And so I fall prey to this. I have to keep myself going. You know, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. If I take time to rest, I'm going to be there a while. I've got to keep moving or I'm going to fall prey to this sloth. One example that comes to mind, because it just happened yesterday, we bought our house over 15 years ago. We've lived in the same house the whole time. The tub lever stopper in our guest bathroom has never worked correctly in those 15 years, and I fixed it yesterday. So, thank you. It finally broke completely last week, and I went by Home Depot and then spent the 5 minutes it took to fix it, and there we go. But it seemed like such a chore for 15 years, like, that can wait. So procrastination is a big thing. But the Enneagram, everybody struggles with different sins, whether it's sloth or fear or anger or pride, something that gets in the way with your ability to fulfill the purpose that God has in store for you, to enrich your life with what you need to be doing. It's so easy to sit still out of whatever, out of fear or out of laziness, and let life pass by instead of getting in the game. And so because I struggle with sloth, with sitting still, I have to look for outside motivations. They don't always come from within. And so when I went through this Enneagram class and admitted to myself that this was my struggle, started looking for things. And so I've got a few examples. There are 3 that I'm going to share with you today. The first, I know some of you are Alabama fans. I don't know if many of you are Alabama basketball fans. But we had a player last year, Colin Sexton. His nickname was the Young Bull. And I was intrigued, so I bought his shirt, the Young Bull. But on the sleeve, his kind of slogan is, I don't know if you can see that, move with a purpose. Move with a purpose. I just happened to get this shirt. I ordered it. It came in about the time that we were going through the Enneagram lesson. I thought, move with a purpose. That's a phrase I need to keep telling myself. Now, what is our purpose? What are we supposed to be doing? It reminded me of watching my girls play soccer this past season. 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds don't know all the rules of soccer. I don't know all the rules of soccer. I never played growing up, so I have trouble telling them what they're supposed to do. And when you've got these girls out on the soccer field that don't know what they're supposed to be doing, they're better than they realize. They're fast. They can control the ball, but they don't know where they're supposed to be, and they don't know the strategy. So sometimes they'll just be out there and they'll stand still because they don't know what they're doing, and they're afraid to make a mistake. And so fear can keep us from trying because we don't want to make a mistake. But if they'll actually move and try, even if they make a mistake, they're going to learn and they're going to get better. But they've got to actually get into the game. And that reminded me of the parable of the talents, Matthew 25. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So when we don't afraid to move, when we stand still, we stagnate, and we just want to hide and let things pass by and not do anything, then we're in danger of a place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. We need to move with a purpose, act intentionally, and get in the game. The other thing that you'll see when you watch 8 or 6-year-old league soccer is a lot of daydreaming instead of getting into the game, not paying attention to what they're supposed to be doing. And I think we fall prey to that sometimes too. We spend a lot of time searching for our special purpose or our dream job or our dream place to live, and we're constantly discontented with what we have. And we don't pay attention to the opportunities we have before us and the work there is to do right in front of us. Sometimes to find what we're looking for, we just have to act intentionally with what we already have. We need to invest in what we have to do, the work that we have to do right in front of us. And we may find we don't need to find a different purpose or a different job. We can be fulfilled by what we already have. An example, and I apologize to non-Alabama folks in here, but Jalen Hurts last night he could have easily been discontented, and I'm sure he struggled with this once he became the backup quarterback at Alabama. But for the last year, what did he do? He not only stayed on the team, but he invested, and he became a better quarterback. And then last night, beyond all belief, starter Tua goes down, Jalen Hurts comes into the game and wins a championship. I mean, what a great story. Whether you like Alabama or not, you had to be happy for Jalen Hurts, aside from what team he plays for. I was happy for the team he plays for, too. But what a great story, and what a good lesson to invest in what he had to do. He could have moped, even staying with the team, and not gotten better. But he did get better, and it was obvious. And when his time came, he took advantage of it. We're told in Colossians 3, whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men, knowing you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. And in Ecclesiastes 9, verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might, for there's no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you're going. We need to stop daydreaming and focus on what we have to do and just do it. We can always, something that nines in the Enneagram struggle with is finding things to do other than what you're supposed to be doing. I struggle with this all the time. I'll have a brief due in one of my cases. And so I'll stay at the office late, and I'll be sitting there after everybody else is gone, needing to focus on this brief, and I'll think, how can I work in this disorganized office? I've got to organize my office before I can do anything. And then I'll waste 2 hours organizing my office, and I still haven't begun on my brief. So we need to stop worrying about these distractions that we can get off on a tangent and do the work in front of us, invest in the opportunities and the work we have to do, and I think we'll find our purpose easier that way. Going back to the soccer analogy, another thing you see in youth soccer is players thinking that their role is unimportant. Well, if I don't have the ball, if I'm not on offense, if I'm not a striker going to score a goal, then why do I care? If I'm in this right side quadrant on defense, I'm just going to stand here. If the ball happens to come to me, maybe I'll kick it if I'm paying attention. But my role's unimportant, so why do I need to try? This reminded me of we're one body with many members. We all have a role. 1 Corinthians 12, for the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, we bestow the greater honor. And our unpresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, and there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. We all have a role to play. There aren't unimportant roles. God has put us in positions on purpose. We've got work to do in front of us, and we need to stay focused and do it and not think that we're unimportant. When my dad used to preach on this subject, he would say, think about your pinky toe. If you don't think your pinky toe is important, just bump it on the bed while you're walking to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And the pain, and it creates, the whole body reacts when your pinky toe is injured. It's an important part of the body, even if you happen to be a pinky toe in God's body, you've got a role to play too. I found this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That I think really drives this home. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep the streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. No work is insignificant. All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence. What a great message that is. Whatever we find to do, do it heartily as working for the Lord. This applies to our jobs, but it applies to our functions as Christians too. How do we fulfill our duties as Christians? Same way. Move with a purpose. Act intentionally. Whether it's right where you are serving others, or if you felt called to go in the mission field and you've been struggling with that for a while, and I feel this gnawing desire to do it, but I'm afraid to do it, step out and do it. Step out in faith and do it. Don't stand still. Do something, and your path will be revealed to you. Proverbs 3:6 says, "In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths." Just step out in faith, knowing that God's going to show you the path forward. Don't be lukewarm. That's what we learn in studying the Enneagram. Don't stand still. It's very tempting, whether it's sloth or fear or something else, to stand still and be lukewarm. As some of you know who have been in classes I've taught before, I am a movie nerd, and everything I see or hear reminds me of a movie line. So to use some of this, Star Wars fans out there, Yoda, in teaching Luke, I think similar to the lukewarm. Be hot or cold, don't be lukewarm. Luke has flown to Dagobah to learn how to be a Jedi. He's crashed his ship into the swamp, and it's time to try to get it out. And he thinks it's too big. He can move rocks, sure, but he can't move the ship out of the swamp. And Yoda tells him it's no different. You can move it out. And he says, "Okay, I'll try." And he said, "No, try not." Maybe I should do it in a Yoda voice. That'd be more. No, I'm not going to do it. He said, "No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try." Similarly, Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, Daniel's son, another good example. They're about to have a karate lesson. And Mr. Miyagi says, "Are you ready?" And Daniel says, "Yeah, I guess so." Miyagi says, "Need talk." He said, "Walk on road. Walk right side road. Safe. Left side road. Safe. Walk middle. Sooner or later. Squash like grape." He said, "Karate do? Karate yes. Karate no. You karate guess so. Squash like grape." So we don't need to just try. We don't need to just guess so. Do it or don't do it. Be hot or cold. And God's going to show us the way. I think Saul's conversion is a great example of that. He was doing what he thought was right. He was dead wrong. But God showed him the way. If we're trying to do what we think is right, if we're acknowledging God in our ways, He's going to make our path straight, just like He did for Paul. So if you don't know what to do, start right where you are. Be more intentional in your relationships and start serving other people around you, and it'll go from there. But just start moving. Don't stand still. We do that as a body, too, at church. We come to church every Sunday, meet with our small groups, come on Wednesday nights, do other things together, but we're almost like an army preparing for battle, and we're going over the rules of engagement and the strategy and the tactics, but we never actually get into battle. We just keep coming to the meetings. Whether it's for fear or lack of confidence or laziness or waiting for somebody else to take the lead, we just don't do it. There's a quote from General George Patton: "A good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan executed next week." You may feel not ready, but we need to step out in faith, and God's going to show us the way. Let's start to move, and God will take it from there. Okay, so that was the move with a purpose. The next thing that stood out to me, and as I try to continue to think about, I'd flown down to Jacksonville to visit my parents in Jacksonville, Florida, and to go to a Jaguars game that we won't talk about. That God has made me both an Alabama fan and a Jaguars fan to keep me balanced. Yeah, I was on the plane coming back from Jacksonville and putting off doing work that I needed to do, surprisingly enough. And I watched a movie that was available. It was a documentary on Mr. Fred Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, right? I'd watched Mr. Rogers some growing up, but didn't really know that much about him. And watching that documentary, he was such a good person who genuinely cared about people, particularly children, and he did something about it. I had not remembered or didn't know that he was an ordained Presbyterian minister too, and he saw that as his ministry. And I started thinking, if they made a movie about me, what would it look like? And if I was truthful with myself, I didn't like the subject of that movie. And so how would I be portrayed? I'd gotten kind of into a rut where, frankly, I didn't like people very much. That's another thing. It's easy. People as a group. Individuals fine, but people are irrational, illogical. People, if you look at them as a group, are sometimes hard to stand. But in watching that and how much he cared for people and made a difference in people's lives, people that watched it when they were 5 years old, that later on would come up to him later and had this emotional response because of how much, with his simple messages of self-importance and reaching out, how much he had touched people with small gestures like that. I mean, just the lyrics to his theme song are a simple yet powerful message. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I've always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor? So when I got back from my trip, this sounds hokey, I'm sure, but I would listen to this song right before I'd go to work, because it's hard to be in a bad mood when you listen to Mr. Rogers' theme song. Even the little keyboard or whatever in the background sounds like bells jingling. It gets you in a good mood and puts you in a right frame of mind to deal with people, not as a group, but as individuals, and the same thought of reaching out to people and being their neighbor. Jesus tells us who our neighbors are in Luke. A lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, "Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" A lawyer. That's right. Not necessarily in a great light. And Jesus said to him, "What's written in the law? How do you read it?" And the lawyer answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And he said to him, "You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live." But the lawyer, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" And then Jesus proceeded to tell the parable of the Good Samaritan. So I think the answer to the question, who is my neighbor, is everyone. And we're to be the neighbor. Neighbor is defined on dictionary.com anyway, not just as someone you live close to, but as one's fellow human being. It's also defined as a person who shows kindliness or helpfulness toward his or her fellow humans. As I said, I've been discouraged by people, especially now. You don't have to have much face-to-face contact with people. You can order everything you need online and just have it delivered to your house. You go to the store even. You can go to the self-checkout line. I don't have to deal with anybody. I can get in and out, and I don't have to say anything to anybody. I can sit at home, and instead of calling anybody or going to see them, I can just text them. I can send an email. I can get on Twitter and Facebook, but I don't ever have to see anybody face-to-face. Part of that can be good, and it's good to connect with people however you do it, but when you're detached, when you're not face-to-face, and you get into the dark side of social media and the comments to tweets and the comments to articles and the ugly underbelly that is out there, it's easy to be discouraged and cynical and put everybody in groups. And it's like, I hate everybody on Fox News, or I hate everybody on MSNBC. I hate all the fans of Alabama, or I hate all the fans of Auburn. And it's easy to put people in groups and categories. And when we do that, we disconnect from people, and we get discouraged. And so, but if we look at people as individuals who are our brothers and sisters, God's children, then we get back to what we're supposed to be doing, which is acting as a neighbor. What we don't need to do is act like the prodigal son's older brother. So in Luke 15, now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of his servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, "Your brother's come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound." But he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him, but he answered his father, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, not his brother, this son of yours, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him. And he said to him, Son, you're always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this, your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. We need to not detach and think of people in a different category as different. They're different than me, and I don't like them. I don't want to hear them. They're irrational. We're brothers and sisters. We're God's children. We all have importance and worth, and we need to fight that. We need to not fall prey to that categorizing people and separating them from ourselves. In Philippians, it says, do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interest of others. Again, we need to humble ourselves. Part of that, I think, is conceit. I know better. They don't agree with me. I don't want to hear it. We need to humble ourselves and look out for the interest of others. This also reminded me of the Pharisee and the tax collector in Luke 18. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. If we don't humble ourselves, how can we provide for the least of these? The Bible tells us whatever we do for the least among us, we do to him. If we don't humble ourselves, we can't be a good neighbor to our fellow human beings. And so that was the second lesson I got. So the third came around my birthday. My sweet wife got me a present from our friend Chris Richardson, who most of you know, I assume. If you don't know, he's been making axes. Richardson Axe Works is a company he started, fashioning and restoring old axe heads and handles. And he actually was just featured this month in Garden and Gun for his work. But when she got the hatchet for me, which I didn't bring, I didn't want to scare anybody. There was a cop outside. I was afraid I might be detained and not be able to come inside, was this T-shirt. So he's got his little logo on the back, which is his face. I don't know if you can see that. And the axes, crossed axes. And it's got a Latin phrase, memento vivere, which means remember to live. And that's another lesson I need to avoid the slothful temptation to just stand still. Remember to live. Psalm 118:24, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We have a daily choice to make. It's a choice whether we're going to rejoice and be glad in the day the Lord has blessed us with. In Ecclesiastes 3, it says, I perceive that there's nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man. And Ecclesiastes 9, enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Again, we have a daily choice. Are we going to enjoy the day that God has blessed us with? Identify whatever's holding you back from doing that, from making the choice to rejoice and be glad in each day, whether it's sloth or fear or anger, whatever, and work daily to overcome it. And start to do the things that will enrich your life and in turn help you connect with others, whether it's making axes, whether if you want to travel, do it. If you've been thinking about going somewhere. If you want to learn a second language, do it. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. Start moving, start doing the things instead of just thinking about the things that you wanted to do. So in summary, let's move with a purpose. Let's act intentionally and invest in the work and opportunities that are right in front of us. Let's be a true neighbor and invest in individuals and don't just see it as groups of people, but treat everyone as individuals. And let's remember to live. And I'll leave you with this quote from another movie, Shawshank Redemption. Andy Dufresne says, I guess it comes down to a simple choice, really. Get busy living or get busy dying. So let's all get busy living and fulfilling the plans God has in store for us. Thank you.